Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
What's up, Coach? Are you looking for a way to elevate your off-season skill development? Well, look no further. With the Bology app, you can build a workout with our library or create your own content. Send that workout to your players, and then your players complete the workout by recording their session on their phones. You can monitor and encourage competition with our leaderboards for every workout. Bology offers player development solutions in the palm of your hands. Get your team started today by going to bology.com for more info.
Playing offense is, in my opinion, different than running offense. Playing offense, as soon as leather touches our fingertips, we call it flow. Like we're flowing as soon as leather touches, which means we're going to run to dangerous spots, deep corners first. Then we're going to find the next dangerous spots. We'll keep the paint open because we want the ball to go there, so we don't just stick a body there with their defender. And then them understanding the possibilities. So Chris Oliver with Basketball Immersion talked about the difference between musts and possibilities. If our offense has a bunch of musts in it, the creativity, the feel, the rhythm, it's going to halt. What if the defense does something that stops that must? You back out, you look over at the coach, you reset, you run another action.
Reset's a curse word.
Oh, there's no such thing as reset.
Reset
We're flowing. But if it's possibilities based, if they take this away, no worries. We have enough space to where there's another possibility. It's what Michael Jordan said, whatever the defense chooses, they're wrong. But you're right. That is a shift. That's a shift in their thinking. And I think players want to play that way, but how many coaches will allow them to actually play that way? That's the tough part.
Well, I think a lot of times it's because they don't understand that. There's this element of like wanting control offensively. And like, that's what you talk about with my book. I mean, chapter 3 is emphasize rhythm. And it's like, what is rhythm or flow or pace? I'd often say that, one of my foundational convictions was every coach wanted us to enter the zone. And then my own coaches did everything they could to disrupt it, right? Too many of them did. Some of them were fine. But, hey, I want you to play and flow and in the zone. Well, then shut up. Sit down. Be quiet.
Stop putting me in handcuffs, right?
Yes. And stop talking to me and stop telling me what play we want to run. It's like, if I need your help, and I was a point guard, so it's a little different as a point guard. And it's like, I would say to the coach, like, you hired, and again, I played till I was 32, 33 years old.
Man, good for you.
By the time I was 29, 30, I was like, you didn't hire me so that you could tell me everything. You hired me to win, to run this team, to find the flow we need. I'm good at it. I got you. Like, just relax. I got you. And now that doesn't mean that every kid is there yet, right? Because when you're coaching various levels, but it does mean that you have to teach that thing.
Yeah.
So in order to teach rhythm and teach flow, right? What many people think is they just think, well, let's teach rhythm and flow in the half court context. Well, it's a full court game.
Yeah.
What kind of flow do you want between your offense and defense? And then if you're preparing for a game for a team that's going to play slow, how are we going to disrupt their flow and make the game more our rhythm, more our flow, more our pace, right? Which are all distinguishing terms, but a little bit different in my mind. So that's not something that you can just assume. And many people assume that. No, you actually need to work on the rhythm and the pace that you want. So, around here, we'll play with it. We won't always do it, but a 15-second shot clock, a 12-second shot clock, a 20-second shot clock, a 24-second shot clock. I used to do things where like one team had 30, the other team had 15, because one team's trying to speed up the game, the other team's trying to slow down the game because we're preparing for an opponent who would do that. And how can you punish that team? Rhythm and flow is, and I've said this numerous times through the years, but especially recently, I always just say discipline is contextual. So you need to work on the context in which you play in order for your players to actually have game discipline, right? And when people talk about shot selection, it's contextual. it's one of my biggest pet peeves is when, my brother's a commentator for ESPN, and he's really good about this because he knows I would lose my mind on him in the middle of the game and text him. He's like, when they're like, "That's a bad shot."
Oh, what does that mean?
Like, according to who?
Yeah.
According to who?
It's vague.
Who are you?
Yeah.
Yes. How do you know that's a bad shot? Like, there are bad shots, but let's explain to me why. And a lot of times it's like in our program at Rowan, especially, but even here we're playing quite fast. We'd say, we talk about log in the game. It's a bad shot. It would have been a good shot 2 possessions ago. Now it's a bad shot because we just had 2 quick shots. We haven't attacked the rim. We haven't put pressure on the defense to try to get to the free throw line. They just made 1 or 2. Now that's a dumb shot. Even though it's the same shot that you could have taken 2 possessions ago and have been okay. That's nuance. That's gray area. That's wisdom. That's knowing how to play. That's developing a feel for the game. How do you do that if you're not in practice playing 5 minutes in a row, right? Yeah. And playing, go a step further, playing with the bonus, playing with foul trouble, playing with all this information that is in the game that as a pro, when I was 30, I could just tell you everything about it. I could tell you who had had fouls, where our mismatches was, how far we are from the bonus, how I'm going to get in the bonus. This guy's got 1 and I don't want to see him anymore, so I'm going to try to get him 2. There's all this information that you're processing at the professional level. Well, if you want your players to start to live there, then you need to live there. Yeah. You need to put them in that context so that they can grow in that. That's more than rhythm, but
that's good. That's good. When I ask coaches about one thing that they wish they could do differently, or maybe even from year to year, one of the major ones is scrimmage more. The other one is end of game situations. They always feel like those 2 things that they don't get to do enough, but I'm guilty of it. And I think here's like another, write your philosophy down, step 1, and then step 2, look at last year's practice plans and look at the drills and what you do daily and how many of those are actually putting the guys in the same or close to the same situation that they'll be in live play. Or is 3/4 of it just technique, dummy work, rep? We look good. We're saying ball, wall, like all that, in my opinion, crap that doesn't really happen in a game. You don't have time to sit on the wall and yell at it a bunch of times. You're moving. Things are happening. But look through your practice plans and figure out, know your identity, who we are and how we want to play, and what drills or games actually lead us to that. It's funny you said the 15 seconds because and another thing I think coaches can do is create your own drills. There are so many great coaches out there and great drills, but it may not apply to your team and what you do. So look at the way that you play. Well, the situations your guys are in games in 15-second, we just call it 15-second game. We don't have a shot clock in Texas, sadly, so we have to create our pace. It's rough, and there's good basketball here, and so
Jersey, PA, same thing. It drives me. And
I'm from PA originally. I grew up in Berwick, Pennsylvania, up by Wilkes-Barre until 8th grade. But this 15-second.
Please put in a shot clock. Anybody, anywhere. Like it's the best teacher.
I gotta imagine for college coaches too to come and watch. I can't wait to watch these kids play and everything, and then 45 seconds of pounding it, resetting a continuity all over again when 85% of the time they're not even looking to score through the actions that they're doing.
It's fake offense.
Offense. And JJ Redick had a great little clip the other day about why the NBA is so good is because there's no fluff. He said in college basketball, and no offense, coach, but in college basketball, he was talking, he said there's a lot of fluff. I think in high school basketball, there's tons of fluff, especially when you don't have a shot clock. But 15-second game, and I'll stop rambling, 15-second game, start on one end of the court. The team that's on defense is actually the team of that game, the one that we're using the clock for. And as soon as leather touches fingertips, change possession or inbound, whatever, they have 15 seconds to score. And you said something about like making fast normal. How do you make fast normal unless they feel pressure? They feel pressure on themselves that they have to create with possibilities. And you know what? I've seen coaches at the beginning of the year, we're getting like on our shot scale would be 5s and 6s, contested jumpers or 50-50 shots that, man, you wouldn't bet $100 on. But we're getting those at the end of that 15 seconds. But something magical happens if you allow them to make mistakes and you allow them to push through it, and you're not penalizing them for the turnover decisions. Because, like Gannon Baker said, we're celebrating the try in what they're doing. Coach, I see a shift. I see all of a sudden we're getting what we would consider 7s, 8s, and 9s, great shots in shorter than 15 seconds. But you got to go through the pain, and you got to allow them to experiment, or you never get to that spot, in my opinion. And I'm sorry for the last 2 minutes of rant. I'll edit it out now.
No, don't edit that. That's good stuff. And I think that there's two things that come to mind, because you mentioned games first, right? And the one question I used to always ask, I still ask, is, I ask this as a player a lot: are you preparing us for the game, or are you preparing us for the way you want the game to be? There's a radical difference between those two things, right? And when I first started coaching, that was a big thing for me. Was even in the pros, it was like, and the pros is typically a much more ordered game. There's more order to the game because we're better. So you can't mess up. Like, if you mess up your ball screen coverage on me at 21, that's different than messing up your ball screen coverage on me at 31. Radically, I was going to make you pay at a 50% 3-point clip, and in college it might have been a 37% clip, right? And so, because I saw the game, it was slow motion, all this other stuff. So that's why people always want to get to that order that they see in the pros. Sometimes they don't think the guys are playing hard, and I'm like, no,
it's ridiculous.
They're playing their brains are at such a high level. Like the game is so, it is in slow motion. The stuff they're doing is so high level. The timing of their cuts is incredible. But go back to that question. A lot of times we're preparing them for what we want the game to be, not what the game's actually going to be. There's a difference. So, you see this all the time when someone's we're going to do this, and if we don't do it right, we're going to do it again until we do it right. Well, you're not going to do it right in the game. So then what, right? It's not always going to go according to plan. It never does. So you always have to work on the basis of that. So you do need to work on what's going to happen, not what you want to happen. And I think you got to do that more, because what you don't want to happen is going to happen. Unless you're playing against the Sisters of the Poor, you got to work on the actual game like stuff, and that includes technique stuff, that includes getting beat, that includes, I used to always say that about defenses, what we do after we're beat is the most important. I told our players, we're going to be the best team at recovery, we're going to be the best team at getting back to neutral when we get beat, because we wanted to create pace, right? That was working with the game as it's going to be.
What are some strategies, real quick, what are some strategies to create those situations for how the game actually is? My first thought was maybe disadvantage games, like 4-on-3, and put guys in disadvantages where they have to just defensively continue to find an answer. What's next? What's the need? But what do you think?
Yeah, and I think you can do too many disadvantage games at times, because you're always battling between, a defensive advantage, offensive advantage, or neutral, where there's no real advantage. But one would be like we would play flyby twice a week. I called it flyby. So it was 4-on-4 or 5-on-5. And it was like, if I threw the ball to you and I was defending you, I would fly by you 2 steps. You had to attack. Somebody had to stop, kick, play. Well, the reason it was such a foundational thing for us is I wanted our offense to be really good with an advantage. I was very confident we'd find one, and we worked on that plenty, and I had good players, so we were going to get an advantage. So I wanted us to be great with the advantage, taking the shot, attacking, making extra passes. But defensively, I also wanted us to be great at getting back to neutral when the offense had an advantage. Well, how do you do that? You rotate. How? There's not always an easy answer to that. There's an ideal how.
If you just talk about a tandem move every single possession, golly, what if the offense is in a different spot? What if there had just been action running on this backside that is making players move? They're not just sitting there like help, drop. Go ahead.
There's not always an X out. And then there's decisions of, there's 2 guys on the weak side and there's only one to guard them. Now our guys need to make a decision between that guy or this guy. That's a high level basketball play where NBA players aren't going to mess that up except for the young ones. Well, if you want to teach that to your college or high school players, then you actually need to be in that situation or create that situation. You could even do it 2-on-2 at times. There's this guy and there's this guy. Who do you want to shoot? Choose. Fake at them, and now fake at them and do something or whatever. Unless you put them in that situation in a game-like setting where the game's to 11 and maybe you got to run or it's a best-of-3 series or whatever, that's what we would often do. To me, that's also helpful too, because the best things to do teach both your offense and defense at the same time. You're limited with your time. So ideally, you try to match up those two. Sometimes there's a conflict of interest between how you want to defend and how you want to play offense, just inevitably. But ideally, there's less conflict of interest. You want to develop a defense that actually helps your offense if you're really interested in scoring a lot. So I think there's a lot. That's definitely one way. And another way is, play 5-on-5, but specify your ball screen coverage, for example, to trap, so that now you're ending up in the same kind of situation where it is an advantage, but it's less of an advantage. And it's like you're giving the offense this clarity. And now you're going to teach them how to attack a trap on a ball screen. We're going to short roll. We're going to hit the guy ahead, or we're going to hit the shake behind, right? Now hit them. I used to do this with 5th graders, 6th graders all the time. We're going to trap the ball. Here's your options. Now play out of it. The other thing, though, we just mentioned is a shot clock. I mean, when you use a shot clock, that to me is the best constraint, because like you said, and what you pointed to, when you put 15 seconds on the shot clock, it's going to be ugly at first, but eventually they will adjust and they will learn how to create shots in 15 seconds. They'll learn how to create shots in time. Back in Jersey, in our youth basketball business, we created a summer league that was 24-second shot clock for 7th through 9th or 10th graders.
Yeah.
And at first, they would be like, what in the world just happened? The buzzer goes off and they're walking the ball up the court. And sometimes we'd have to say, all right, timeout, both teams. This is your first week. You're not used to this. Do you think you can just walk the ball up the court and act like there's no urgency? Because now you have 14 seconds. Oh, no, we can't do that. Typically within a game, they adjusted.
Yeah.
But within a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, what do? We created a new normal. We created the ability. So it's like, if you just want your players to learn how to create shots more efficiently, give them 10 seconds. They will. Do that for 2 weeks. Do it for 3 weeks. Do it with 7-year-olds, for crying out loud. I do it with 9-year-olds. Do it with 13-year-olds. There's more to it than that, right? If you want to teach your team how to attack mismatches, for example, we used to use the red jersey. I'd put a guy in a red jersey on both teams. That was the guy you wanted to attack, and you got double the points if he was the one you got an advantage from. You didn't even just have to score on him. You had to attack him to get an advantage, because sometimes offense is that simple. There's a guy on the court who stinks at defense. Go find him. Go get him involved, right?
Yeah.
That's how you play it in the pros. That guy stinks, or that guy, we want that guy to have foul trouble. Go find him. Go get him and attack the heck out of him, and then do it again and again and again until we score in the time we have allowed. So there's those different methods that are super simple. They teach a kind of what I like to refer to as just self-organization.
Yeah.
This ability to just figure it out collectively and on the fly, and and sometimes the best results of that, we talk about it as imbalanced spacing. We just naturally, I always thought it was funny, like, hey, we want to balance the floor. And I'm always like, why? I don't understand. Maybe, but maybe we don't want the floor to be balanced, because now we've created a situation for the defense in transition that they're not used to. Because what do they do in practice every day? They balance the floor every single time.
Yeah.
So if we have an imbalanced floor and the point guard brings it up and then he fills the space, now we're putting the defense in an unfamiliar situation. And if you work on that enough, we would say, some coaches would ask, like, well, what do you do here? And I would say, I don't know. Who is it? Who has the ball? What's the situation? I mean, probably a ball screen, probably a 2-man game, probably a screen and rescreen, or screen pop, and then move into a 45 cut to it, whatever. There's a lot of options on the table. But if you just put them into a 16-second shot clock or 15-second shot clock, because we're talking about that, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It might be in your favor. So it doesn't mean that you don't teach floor balance or great spacing. You do. But sometimes, think about it, a lot of the plays we run are trying to purposefully create bad spacing for them, right? It's trying to create imbalance at the end to create a scoring play and create an abundance of space for our best players. That's often what our plays revolve around. So it's not complicated, but it's often counterintuitive.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.